How are you? How are you feeling? And how is this time for someone who lives to travel like yourself?
Yeah, I'm an extrovert and I love to travel. So you would think that I'm doing horrible in this. I haven't been on a plane since March 1st. I don't know when I'll be on a plane again. So that I think the last time I was in this situation was in college years ago. But I'm doing great, actually. I've taken this time to enjoy what it's like to not be jet lagged, focus on my health, my mental health. I'm getting good sleep and eating healthy. So overall, doing the best I can given the circumstances. But boy, do I wish I was back in the sky.
That's great to hear that you're making the best of the situation, as we all should. And
Yeah.
just
How are you, Tanya?
we're all just doing our job here at Forbes to cover all the leading experts, to interview experts like yourself for these for this Instagram Live series. And we're really excited to get started. And I want to invite all our viewers right now, if you have questions, drop them in the comment section. Our Forbes social media team and editors are fielding those questions to make sure Brian gets to as many as possible, because I'm sure there will be many. So it's great that you're doing well. And I'm just going to start with, what is the future of travel based on what you and your team of experts are seeing?
Yeah, travel's going to change no matter how we're not going back to normal. There won't be, I think, the beauty of it is, I think travel in the future will be safer, just like after 9/11 and we put together the TSA, which you could debate if it actually makes us much safer. But, the fact of the matter is there haven't been any hijackings and, it has served a purpose. I see a similar thing happening in terms of using technology to ensure our health. We just saw Emirates is now testing for COVID before their flights, instant tests. We've seen Etihad at their check-in kiosks check your temperature. And I really think we're going to have to use technology like biometrics so that we can get through airports quicker. Waiting in a long line in a crowd of people to go through customs, to go through security, that we need to get rid of. So I think on the flip side of this, the travel industry is extremely resilient. And I'm hopeful that the actual travel process will become safer and more efficient by using technology.
Well, that's great to know. That's where the airline industry is headed. That will likely be the new normal, but getting to the airport, boarding the plane, that's half the journey.
Yeah.
What about hotels? What's the new standard for making sure customers feel safe?
Yeah, I definitely think using technology, robots, instead of, putting a frontline cleaner making minimum wage to clean a room and potentially come in contact with deadly viruses. I think the industry is going to really look, and we've already started to see some robots cleaning hallways. I definitely think there's a use for technology there or even just cleaning systems in a room where it sprays down and disinfects everything, so you don't have to, worry if the room's been cleaned. So I also think things like, in Las Vegas, we're known for the buffets. I think we'll see an end to the buffet, which we've known for years. Lots of carrier for lots of diseases. So, and the same thing with, with cruises. Cruisers are the most loyal travelers that I know. They will be back on ships, but you're just going to have to see a different way, showing your COVID-free card before you board the cruise, and better cleaning on board.
Got it. My next question for you is, when it comes to reward programs, should travelers even be looking into these opportunities right now? Is this too crass of a question?
No, absolutely. So look, the industry's down. I don't recommend travel, So first of all, to answer your question, using points right now is a great time to use your points. Airlines have opened up incredible amounts of award inventory. We've seen a 900% increase in United Airlines business class awards versus January. So if you stockpile of frequent flyer miles, I would recommend using them for future travel today, especially because the airlines have, every airline has instituted free changes or free redeposits on award tickets. And just what we saw this morning, Virgin Australia is entering the first rounds of bankruptcy. They've halted all the redemptions on their program. Norwegian Airlines just laid off a lot of people. I would recommend use your points. I don't do a run on points, so to speak, because most loyalty programs are making billions of dollars. You know, Hilton just sold $1 billion worth of points to Amex to shore up their finances. But I would recommend book a trip for the end of the year, early into next year, and worst case scenario, if you're using points, you can usually get them back free of charge. So save your cold hard cash, especially if you're worried about losing your job potentially, and then use those loyalty points to book amazing deals.
So you're saying end of year, fall, when do you see this picking up again?
So that's the $1 billion question in the industry. I mean, if I got antibody tests and I knew I had it and wasn't going to contract it, I would be on a plane tomorrow, knowing that I couldn't spread it. But there's still so much to be learned. We're not there yet. So I do think testing is going to be, you know, the vaccine's not going to be available until 2021 earliest. Right. I think everyone is going to have to make a personal health decision. If you haven't contracted COVID, are you willing to travel to another country where you may not be covered under health insurance? That's a very valid question that people are going to have to start looking into. So I foresee in 2020 in the US, tons more domestic travel to national parks, less crowded destinations. But even then, you know, this virus can be transmitted very easily. That's why COVID is so dangerous. So everyone will have to make a personal decision for themselves. Is it worth it? Can I contract it? So there's still so much to be done in that area, but I would start booking trips for the end of the year and hoping that our therapeutics and treatments and testing and antibody testing will be in a much better place than it is today.
Understood. And when you say domestic travel, domestic road trips, does that include summer or not quite yet?
Yeah, I would start thinking, I wouldn't be putting, so my number one tip would be don't book any non-refundable travel that you can't get back, right? Like, so I would start planning for, you know, I've always wanted to do a cross-country US road trip, and what better time? You know, I've been all around the world, but I still have never been to Alaska and explored the great west of the US. So, and whether you live in Europe or the US, I think there's a lot of really amazing places to go within your country. I know France and Italy are toying with, you know, and the Czech Republic today, the president said, we don't want visitors potentially until next year. So I think the key theme of 2020 travel will be less air travel, but more regional and domestic travel, because there are amazing places all throughout the US.
Yes. So is this the end of the cruise industry in your opinion?
Absolutely not. You know, cruisers are already booking trips for next year at really high rates. You know, the industry is definitely in a tough time. I know several cruise lines have taken foreign investment to stay afloat, so to speak. So I don't foresee cruising. You know, we've seen some pretty crazy things happen in cruising in the past with ships you know, getting in accidents and cruisers, and generally, you know, people have short memories. Now, COVID-19 is certainly going to stick around for a while, but people will be back to traveling and cruising like they did before. Probably just not until, you know, more towards 2021 at this point, even though it's canceled through the summer.
So what we forget though is, I know, you know, Hilton, major hotel chains, big airlines are rolling out programs and reward programs for those who want to book early, but the tourism and hotel industry is also comprised of many small mom and pop businesses. How do we support those small businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. Giants? Yeah, so there's actually a couple different, I've seen kind of like bonds for hotels. There are a couple companies now offering, if you buy $1,000 worth of small hotel gift cards, it'll be worth $1,500 in the future. I anticipate seeing more and more of that, especially for boutique hotels that don't have the, you know, being a part of a Marriott or Hilton, even though being a part of a Marriott doesn't necessarily ensure that your hotel will make it through this. But so I haven't seen a ton of them, but I foresee more and more of them where you can buy, you know, and so it's a win for the consumer and a win for the hotel for liquidity reasons. But yeah, if you want to book a refundable stay for the future, even just having some future bookings will help hotels. But you know, it's it's a tough time for the industry. I know the hotel industry specifically, which hasn't gotten huge bailouts like the airlines, we've seen mass furloughs, and the cruise industry did not get a bailout like we've seen the airlines. So those industries are going to have to fight to survive.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Sounds like thunder outside. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but will some airlines start to go out of business eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing it now. I think the most at risk is Norwegian Airlines, which just laid off a ton of people. They were on rocky financial ground before this crisis, and we've seen passenger counts drop over 90%. So without barring government intervention, most airlines will go under. You know, the thing about airlines is they have such high fixed costs, these $100+ million pieces of aircraft that they owe to the lenders, whether there's people flying on them or not. So there's massive costs, huge employee bases. You know, Virgin Australia is now going into administration. Doesn't mean it's over with, but it's going to emerge a much different airline. So, yeah, the governments and taxpayers are pretty much going to be on the hook for keeping airlines afloat if we want to keep the world connected as we have it today.
Wow. And next question is, how will airplane travel change with regards to pricing?
Well, it's interesting. Right now, we see some really amazing fares for the future. Airlines are really just trying to get any sort of cash they can. So we're seeing, you know, $20 from Miami to New York. You know, New York to London, $300 round trip on United. Normally to get $300 to Europe, you're gonna have to fly a low-cost carrier or stop in Iceland. So there are some pretty good deals out there now. But what will happen long-term is we probably will see some consolidation. Some of the smaller airlines like JetBlue may not be able to make it through as long as the larger airlines. So we could see not just mergers and acquisitions, but also with strategic partnerships. You know, Virgin Atlantic is owned 49% by Delta. Delta also just acquired a share in LATAM, which could shore up their long-term operational stability. So I see more strategic partnerships than M&A, but anything is possible. And I think whether you're a business person, business travel is going to fundamentally change, more video conferencing, but the world should. So as an avid traveler, you see, sorry, my alarm had gone off because I keep snoozing it
it's
now.
Okay.
But yeah, so bottom line is airfares are cheap now for the future, but I do see them rising once the industry consolidates. But that probably won't be for a while.
Earlier on, you were talking about how things will change before we board the plane, from screening, temperatures, etc. But what happens when we are seated in middle or row or aisle? How will that experience change altogether?
Yeah, well, most airlines are blocking middle seats for the time being since most planes are empty now. So social distancing is happening on most flights. I don't know of a single flight that's jam-packed right now besides a one-off repatriation flight. So I foresee middle seats being empty for the foreseeable future until demand increases. I foresee airlines really taking a public step on cleaning planes. You know, before this, planes were, you know, arrive to a gate, turn around within an hour, fly with very minimal cleaning in between. So I foresee that changing, where there's going to be new technology. Once again, little Roombas with antiseptic spray that goes down and cleans the aircraft front to back, at least for viruses. I also foresee, you know, you get a pack of peanuts and maybe some sanitary wipes to wipe down your area. Definitely. And then also, yeah, like you said, people who are visibly sick, which I know I've flown with a million times, we will have to have a different take on how we transport people who are at risk of transmitting viruses. I think we need to handle that in a much different way, considering the community is at risk.
Got it. Is it worth getting a credit card that rewards purchases with points back toward airline travel?
1,000%. I mean, I'm the points guy, so I'd be remiss not to say, you know, loyalty programs can allow you to minimize the amount of cash that you outlay, especially for business and first class tickets. And also, putting on a rewards credit card, if you put travel and your airline goes under, in most cases that you'll be covered for trip cancellation. Case in point, WOW Air, the budget airline from Iceland, went under. And here's the thing, when airlines go under, you don't get a ton of notice. You may show up at the airport that day and then they have no more liquidity and that the flights don't operate. So a lot of our readers were stuck in Reykjavik, a very expensive place to be stuck. And if you use the right travel credit card with trip insurance built in, which many have, they were able to rebook themselves and get reimbursed 100%, up to $10,000 for those flights. So not just for earning points, but the perks that you get by using a credit card. They give you a lot more flexibility if your airline goes under or if you get stranded.
How do you believe attitudes toward tourism will change overall?
I think we are going to see, myself included, this is the first time in a very long time where I've not really been able to travel. I think we all take it a lot for granted. Like, let me go to Miami 5 times just to see friends versus actually getting out there and doing amazing trips. I've always wanted to see Machu Picchu, but I've always just taken it for granted. Like, oh, it'll be there when I want to go. I'll wait for a cheap airfare. I think once we're out of this and people can travel safely, I think people are going to be much more intentional about visiting the places that, enhance their lives or will change their lives. So I also see, I've been spending a lot of time with my parents. I see more intergenerational travel. We've all been able to hopefully reconnect with our families during this time. And now once we can travel again, I see a lot more of that intergenerational travel happening. So less travel, but more meaningful, soulful travel is what I project.
Interesting outlook. Are some tourist-heavy cities like Las Vegas, Paris, Dubai, especially struggling with the lack of international travel?
Absolutely. New York City specifically, huge. And it's a shame because travel is not just airlines and hotels. Travel's the number 2, the travel and tourism and hospitality, number 2 fastest growing driver of global GDP. So that impacts everyone down to tour guides, street vendors, across multiple industries. Travel is a huge economic driver. So, but especially in places like Las Vegas, the whole ecosystem has been crushed. And now, they're talking about how do you open up a casino when people sit next to each other? So the blackjack tables, do they make them bigger so people can sit apart? Do people wear masks? These are questions that I know people in the tourism industries across the world are trying to solve for now. But, I think the number one thing will just be testing and therapeutics to get this and tracing standardized across the board so that we can prevent future outbreaks.
Okay, another question from our viewers. Once normal travel resumes, will flights be more expensive to make up for lost revenue?
No, I don't think they will. I think it's supply and demand. So it'll really just depend. Flight prices will increase on routes where planes are full. And considering that planes are now at 5% or less capacity, it's going to be a long time till we get to that place. Also, planes will be flying because the U.S. government bailout, especially in the U.S., because the bailout mandates critical air service. So, airlines will charge what they can get for a flight, not what they're making up for past time. So flight pricing is really future forward versus let's make up for lost time.
You don't just cover the world of travel, you cover credit cards, and of course, small businesses have been decimated by the coronavirus outbreak. When it comes to business credit cards, what are your top picks? What are your advice?
Yeah, in the US, so small business credit cards, this is a great way for businesses to help their bottom line. Because if you use a rewards credit card plus one with perks, like giving employees lounge access and flight benefits, your employees are happier, and you're earning valuable points that you can use to, for cash or for employee incentives. So the Inc. Business Preferred is probably the top card right now that I would recommend in the US. It's got a 100,000 point sign-up bonus, and that card also rewards travel purchases as well as having travel protections. But another thing that airlines have just come out with, American and United, And now Delta also, you have the ability to earn elite status and lifetime elite status just by spending on your credit cards. Air Canada just announced something similar where if you transfer in hotel or credit card points, you can get elite status. So for those road warriors out there, I know a lot of us have been biting our fingernails because, you know, in order to get elite status on airlines, you need to keep traveling. And they're making it easier than ever to get an airline credit card to get that valuable status. So that's something to look into as well.
You're a thought leader in the travel industry. What words of advice do you have for those who live to travel?
I would just say, take this time. Don't squander this crisis. You know, even though we're at home, doesn't mean you need to not be thinking about travel. It's okay to think about travel. There's a lot of great places where you can visit virtually, although we all know that it's not the same seeing the Eiffel Tower as it is when you're in person and you see those lights light up at night. But, you know, this too shall pass. I think right now it's important for us to stay home. You know, our frontline workers are truly being pushed to capacity. So it would be selfish. And I saw someone ask if I have a trip booked right now. And the answer is no, because it would be selfish of me, even though I'm relatively young and healthy, and I probably would be fine. But you also never know that, you know, that a lot of young people have been hit really nastily. So assuming that, oh, I'm young, I'll be asymptomatic, probably wishful thinking. So for the sake of, you know, the nurses, I know people who are getting paid $10 an hour as nurses assistants to risk their lives. For you to go see, you know, and travel right now and put those people at risk and spread it would be irresponsible. So I'm the #1 fan of travel in the world, but now it's just not the time. So a little bit of patience will go a long way for the sake of the world.
The points guy himself is telling everyone to just stay put for the time being and stay safe. You know, as this outbreak makes us rethink our personal health, it's also making us rethink and revisit the importance of the health of our environment. And it's Earth Day tomorrow. How do you see this impacting sustainable travel?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for Mother Nature to take a breath, and we've already seen amazing things happen. I just saw pictures from South Africa where animals are thriving, and, you know, in Venice, the canals have cleared up dramatically. I hope that this also gives us, you know, the skies a chance to breathe, and it encourages all of us to think about, you know, we were not on a sustainable path before this. And as much as I want that, you know, and I am standing behind the travel industry to rebound, but I think, you know, it may cause us to, do we need so many flights on certain routes per day? You know, is the travel industry really right size? Is constant growth that without the vision of sustainability, is that it's not sustainable? And we all know that global warming's had huge impacts on this earth. So I'm all for the industry surviving, but I'm highly optimistic that we can be, when we return to travel, it'll be much more meaningful and much more sustainability, instead of just, as someone is writing, constant growth with no accountability. Hopefully we can strike that balance.
Wonderful point. Last question for Brian Kelly, the points guy. When this is over, when it's deemed safe again, where will you go? What is the first trip you're going to book?
The first flight I'm going to book, because I promise we launched the Points Guy UK a year ago this week. So I was supposed to be in London right now celebrating with our team. The pointsguy.co.uk, they've done an amazing job at creating millions of people around their audience. So I will be going to London, checking out British Airways and Virgin's new business class suites, which I didn't get a chance to do at the end of last year. But my personal trip will be Machu Picchu. It's been on my list forever. I feel like once it opens up, it'll be a great time to go because it's gotten a chance to breathe and rest a little bit. So I want to go before it probably gets crowded again.
Follow-up is, will this be a solo trip or with friends or family?
I have a couple friends that want to do Machu Picchu. My parents are 66 and I love traveling with them, but until there's a vaccine or very good therapeutics, I don't know if my parents will really be traveling. So probably with my friends, but I'm going to flip it on you, Tanya. Where are you going when this is all said and done?
Goodness, I think the first place I'll go is to Warsaw, Poland to see my son's great-grandmother. We were supposed to spend Easter with her, but couldn't this time, but it's the first place we'll go.
Oh, amazing. I've never
so-
been to Poland, so you'll have to share with me some of your tips.
Oh, Krakow and Warsaw are beautiful. So
I've heard
wonderful
only
food.
amazing things. I'm hungry
Yes.
just thinking about it.
The kielbasa and pierogies. Brian, I want to thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom about the future of travel, the state of the travel industry, even advice for small business owners. I want you to continue to stay safe. Your entire team has been covering all things travel and first and foremost, how to go about it safely. So thank you so much.